What's up, everybody? Hammerheart Metal Reviews here once again. Today we are doing part 3 in my 4-part series, going from coast to coast, a deep dive into Canada's metal scene. If you missed the first 2 parts of this series, definitely go check them out. Part 1, I talked about Western Canada, being BC and Alberta. Part 2, I did Central Canada, bands from Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Today we're moving a little more east, and this is going to focus specifically on the province of Ontario. Then you can look forward to part 4, where I will talk about Quebec and the rest of the East Coast. So today, just talking about Ontario, limiting to just this province because there's a ton of bands from Ontario. I limited this to probably my favorite top 20 bands from Ontario. I'm sure there's some I'm just not thinking of, so as usual, give me your picks down below. Maybe there's some I haven't even heard of as well. I always just want to keep exploring and finding more stuff that I like to listen to. So give me your picks. That's always my favorite part about doing these kind of videos. And hopefully you get some bands from this list to go check out yourself. So as with the other editions in this series, I'm not ranking these from like 20th down to 1. I'm just doing it alphabetically. No specific order here other than just by the first letter of the band onward. So here we go. Here's 20 bands from Ontario that I think you should check out if you haven't yet. Okay, so first up, going with Annihilator. So this band doesn't need any introduction. Thrash legends, really brings in a technical flair with their playing as well. Jeff Waters, the one longtime member of the band that's been there since the beginning, just really brings in the excellent guitar playing here. I will say I'm not necessarily a fan of every single album Annihilator's ever put out, but I do hold their early stuff in pretty high regard. Like Alice in Hell, Never Neverland is also pretty solid. Like all in all, one of the best Canadian thrash bands, definitely worth checking out. Up next, another legendary band, Anvil. So this is just pure straight ahead classic heavy metal. If you've never seen their movie biography, this is Anvil. Definitely go check that out. Even if you've never heard the band before, it's a really interesting watch and to kind of just give you behind the scenes look into the career of the band, where maybe they were popular, then had a hard time finding an audience, and then kind of made just somewhat of a comeback. But yeah, they've got some classic albums like Metal on Metal, Hard and Heavy. Their vocalist Lips, it always has like tongue-in-cheek lyrics. Just, yeah, a classic band. Definitely go check out Anvil. Up next, I'm going with Burden of Ymir. This is some blackened folk metal. Think for fans of bands like Windeer or Falkenbach. Their album from last year, Hiorat, was really, really good. I haven't heard all the albums yet. I've heard a couple of them, and everything I've heard by them is very good. This is a one-man band. So yeah, if you're into any of that sort of like blackened folk music, definitely go check them out. Probably more of an underrated project, maybe lesser known, but very solid. Go check out Burden of Ymir. All right, up next, going with Cauldron. This is some traditional heavy metal. They've put out 5 full-length albums over the course of their career, and they're all pretty good. I feel like they were really one of the innovators that kind of spearheaded this revival, like the new wave of traditional heavy metal movement with other bands like Enforcer, kind of came out around the same time. Maybe Cauldron is not as like speed-oriented as a band like Enforcer, but there's major like Angel Witch vibes to their music, and it's just smooth, old school, catchy heavy metal. It sounds like it was recorded in the 80s, and they're just one of the best at it for this specific style. Definitely worth checking out if you're just into classic, old school, traditional heavy metal. Up next, going with Crimson Shadows. This is some melodic death metal mixed with power metal. Kind of mixes like the clean vocals with the harsh vocals. Maybe think a band like Unleash the Archers, maybe with some elements of a band like Kalma in there. I did meet this band when they played here in Winnipeg back at the time when I was in a band. We actually got to open up for this band, and they were really cool guys who were fun to play with, and they put on a great show. Yeah, go check out Crimson Shadows if you have not. Up next, another all-time legendary band, Exciter. So speed metal legends here. Obviously, this is like essential listening. This is really one of, if not the first, bands to put out an album in this style. I mean, Heavy Metal Maniac, all-time classic, and they're still going strong to this day. They're still touring, and yeah, like, you gotta go check out their early works for sure. Like I said, this is just a staple for early speed metal, early thrash metal, really one of the bands that started this whole thing. Exciter, I don't need to say anymore. They don't need any introduction. Everyone knows Exciter, but nonetheless, they're easily making this list. Up next, Goathorn. So this is actually a band before Cauldron. The dudes from Cauldron were in the band Goathorn. This is more on the heavy mixed with doom side of things, way doomier than Cauldron, but it still has similarities to the overall sound. Definitely check out, like if you've never heard either band, maybe start with Goathorn and then graduate to Cauldron to kind of see the progression from one band to the other. Starts in more like the heavy doom style, and then it just became a little bit more polished and just traditional heavy metal with Cauldron. But go check out both bands. Great stuff. All right, up next, Infernal Majesty. Another just Canadian thrash classic band. Their debut, None Shall Defy, from the late 80s is, yeah, a Canadian classic. Not much else to say about this band. They don't have a ton of releases, but yeah, classic Canadian thrash. Go check them out. Up next, switching to some black metal with Panzerfaust. So yeah, I've seen this band live. They were really great. Their last few albums, The Sons of Perdition, Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3, all definitely worth checking out. This is just really solid Canadian black metal. We got a lot of great black metal bands up here in Canada, but maybe some of them are lesser known. Panzerfaust, I think, is somewhat well known. Maybe not like huge, but nonetheless, go check them out. Great band. Up next, going with Raider. So this is some thrashy death metal. Their album from 2023. Oh shit, I forgot to write it down. What was it called? Trial by Chaos? I might be misspeaking there. I hope it's called Trial by Chaos. If not, I apologize, but I should have wrote that down. I usually make better notes. But nonetheless, the album from last year was a very solid thrashy death metal album. Just a ton of fun, great riffs. Go check out Raider. Up next, another Canadian classic, Razor. Of course they're going to make this list easily. Speed metal band, thrash metal band, along with Exciter, really spearheaded this whole kind of speed metal movement, especially up here in Canada. This is just one of the early big name bands. Albums like Executioner's Song, Evil Invaders, which obviously inspired the band Evil Invaders that I love. Yeah, just great speed metal, Canadian classic again. Go check out Razor. Sticking with classics, a lot of big name bands on this list today because, yeah, Ontario produced a lot of big name bands. But up next, Sacrifice. So another just all-time classic Canadian thrash band. You got absolute classic albums like Forward to Termination. Just, come on, more great Canadian thrash. If you're going to say we don't have great bands up here in Canada, just listen to all the bands I just named. And it's still going to keep going. We got more to talk about. Here we go. Up next, one of my absolute favorite Canadian bands, Sig Artir. This started out as a one-man project. I believe he does have a full lineup now. This is like folky, black, epic Viking metal. Think for fans of bands like Bathory, Primordial, Falkenbach. Really brings in a unique style as well with his like neoclassical guitar playing. Like the solos really hit the mark and beautiful acoustic moments as well. Just one of the best out there. I absolutely love this project. Every album he's ever released is a gem. If you haven't checked out Sig Artir, change that right now. Out of this whole list today, possibly one of my favorites. They'll be in the top couple for sure, so go check them out. Up next, I'm going with Skullfist. This is another band that's kind of part of the throwback movement. This is just classic heavy metal, speed metal. Sounds like it's from the 80s, but with that modern touch. Be for fans of bands like Enforcer or Traveler. Just a solid Canadian band. Zach Slaughter, the main vocalist and guitarist, just really shreds on the guitar and he's got a great wail as well. Solid album, solid discography. Skullfist, a great band. Up next, going with Slaughter. So this is some more like deathy thrash metal. This band's probably most well known for Chuck Schuldiner from Death briefly joining the band for a very small tenure in the band. But yeah, I don't think he ever actually recorded anything with them. I might be mistaken on that. But yeah, their one album from the late 80s, Strapato, it almost brings in like a punky influence or hardcore influence with the thrash as well. And they didn't really release anything else. I think they put out like a comeback album a few years ago. But yeah. One of the more underrated but bigger name bands, if that even makes sense. But like I said, mostly well known just for Chuck joining the band briefly, but still worth checking out. Up next, going with Smoulder. So this is some epic heavy metal, epic doom. Now the band is based in Finland, but they did start out at least with some members in Canada, so I'll still consider them Canadian for the purpose of this list. Of course, this band's probably most well known for Sarah from Banger TV being their front woman. Her vocals are very unique, brings a different kind of style to it to really make them stand out from the crowd. The debut album was more on the epic doom side that I really dug. The second album kind of drifted more into like some up tempos and just more into like traditional heavy metal territory while still retaining that doom core. Both albums are pretty good overall. Yeah, solid band. I'd like to see them live one day, hopefully. But yeah, go check out Smoulder if you haven't heard them. Up next, going with Thantifaxath. This is some very avant-garde, experimental black metal. I had the pleasure of seeing them live last year, which just blew my mind. They're really out there stuff. Almost seemed like they were just improvising on the spot while still like playing the songs, but kind of like just doing their own thing with it as well. There are a couple full-length Sacred White Noise and Hive Mind Narcosis are both excellent. This is just really strange and hypnotic, unique black metal. One of the best out there, especially from up here in Canada. Go listen to Thantifaxath. Up next, we're going to switch to some death metal with Mold. So yeah, this band has gradually gotten a little more progressive with their songwriting over the course of their career, but every album they've released is very solid. You got stuff like Planetary Clairvoyance, and then their latest, The Enduring Spirit, which really went in a more proggy direction, but I love it all. One of the best Canadian death metal bands for the modern age, for sure. Gotta listen to Mold if you haven't yet. Alright, I got a couple more bands to talk about today, and then that'll wrap up this edition. So up next, another band that I had the pleasure of opening for back in the day when I played in bands, and that is Vesperia. So this is some folky, symphonic death metal. This was actually at the same show with Crimson Shadows. They were both touring together, and we got to open up for them. The main dude behind the band, Morgan Ryder, got to talk to him. He's a really cool guy. He's got like a solo folky project as well. I don't know if Vesperia is even really still active. I know they haven't released anything in a while. While I'm listing them on the Ontario thing, I believe maybe they have moved now to the Maritimes. But nonetheless, I'm including it here. The couple full lengths are pretty solid, and they have a newer EP as well that's really good. Definitely a band worth checking out, and hopefully we get some new music from them sometime soon. All right, and then last but certainly not least, probably my favorite band on this whole list, Woods of Ypres. My list would not be complete if I was not including Woods of Ypres. Melodic black metal mixed with elements of doom, really unique style, just unmistakably Canadian. One of the best Canadian bands ever, in my opinion. David Gold was taken from us far too soon. That's the main man behind the band, if you were unaware or unfamiliar with the project. But yeah, when it started out more on the melodic black metal side, well, it still had those doomy elements. And then over the course of their career, kind of drifted away from black metal. Like their final album was almost a pure doom album, but still with the unique flavor, their Canadian doomy black metal touch that David Gold just really mastered. I mean, Woods 1 and 2 are probably my favorite two albums by them, but 3, 4, and 5 are no slouches either. All 5 killer albums. Easily one of my favorite Canadian bands, and easily one of the best from Ontario, which is what this video is all about. So anyways, there's 20 bands for you. Hopefully you got some new stuff to check out. And like I said earlier, give me your picks of bands from Ontario down below. I'm sure there's some I'm not thinking of and some that I'm just not familiar with or that I might have missed. So always like exploring more stuff. Let me know what you thought of these bands. And until next time, Hammerheart Metal Reviews, out.